So let's look at some of the different countermeasures we can use to stop people from cracking our passwords. The first thing is to force people to use 8 to 12 character alphanumeric passwords. I know that sounds like an easy step, but remember that your users are users and they're going to have trouble remembering this. So at least get them to use 8 characters, if not 12 characters. Another thing you can do is set your password change policy to 30 days. Why 30 days? The point is that it will take some time to crack the passwords. And if somebody gets a hold of the different encrypted password files, then they will in time be able to crack those passwords. However, if we change all of our passwords every 30 days, hopefully by the time they crack the password has already been changed again, so they'll have to start all over again. So make sure that you enforce the policy change on everybody, not just your regular users, but also enforce it on your administrator accounts and even your service accounts as well. After all, remember, a service account is an account on a system that can be used to run a service, a separate program that runs in the operating system. Those accounts can be compromised as well. You can also physically isolate or protect the server. In other words, make sure that people can't get to it, so they can't install some kind of keyboard logger or any other kind of hardware or software that could be used to monitor this information. You could also use different utilities, such as one called syskey. And what syskey does is actually store the different hashes on the disk, but it makes sure that you have to log on to the syskey before you can even access those hashes. You can also monitor the server logs for brute force attacks on the user accounts. Logs are great and logs will give you a lot of information, but you have to remember to monitor your logs. After all, if your logs are recording the information but nobody's bothering to look at it, then really what good is the log? It's just wasted space. So remember to set a regular schedule to monitor the logs and have somebody accountable for those logs so that somebody is always looking for this kind of activity. Now, another interesting tool that you'll find on your CDs is called the Brute Force Estimate tool. And what this is a simple spreadsheet that allows you to try different combinations or look at what different password policies would require to crack them. Now, this tool can be very handy for seeing just how much effort would be required to brute force a particular password. But don't get caught up in the fact that a particular combination might take 4 million different combinations, because that's something that can be achieved relatively fast with various automated tools. But it will give you a good idea of just how much more difficult it is to add that one special character or to have that requirement for upper and lower case. So this is a good tool to help you decide what is the best way to go about doing this. Do I really want to have the password this complex, or can I achieve similar kind of effectiveness with perhaps a less complex password policy? Now, syskey I mentioned, this tool is used to encrypt your passwords. And the key that's used to encrypt the passwords is randomly generated by this utility. Now, this encryption usually prevents the compromise of my passwords because it uses 128-bit encryption to encrypt the system hash itself. Now, in order for you to use syskey, it has to be installed on the system. Once installed on the system, if syskey is removed or is taken off of the system, then that system will not boot. In other words, you have to have the system key in order to be able to boot that system. So this can be a very effective method to stop people from accessing your system at boot time. Now let's look at another scenario. So David did do his scanning of the university, and he found out that most of the services on the ports were disabled. So basically, he found it was a little bit tougher than he thought to access the exam files that he's looking for. So he found it very difficult to run these crackers because he couldn't plant anything on the system. So right now, what he's trying to figure out is how can he go ahead and compromise this system since he's already accepted the money for it. So how do we think David's going to go about doing this next? That's where we get into escalating privileges.